Hi, everybody. My name is Tara. I'm a compulsive eater. I weigh and measure 3 meals a day off the gray sheet. I commit them to my sponsor. I don't eat between meals no matter what. And abstinence gives me a kick ass life today. My abstinence date is March 14th, 2015. And it's by the grace of God and this fellowship and these Hollywood squares or whatever we want to call it, the Brady Bunch, that that I get to live a life today that is kind of normal. And that's wild, right? Like there ain't nothing normal about me. Um, and to be frank, like right as the big meeting was starting, I was like, "Oh, you really need to find an attitude of gratitude right now, because life. I have a normal life, which means sometimes it's hard, and sometimes it's sticky, and sometimes it's uncomfortable. And I'm in one of those situations right now, um, and I have a wonderful husband who told me I need to use my tools. And this is one of them, like remembering what it was like, what happened, and what it's like now. Because this could be infinitely worse if I did not have a connection with a higher power, if I did not have um, tools, spiritual tools. And one of those spiritual tools is talking to other people in recovery, and not believing everything that's between my two ears, because that is a dangerous place for me to go still many years later. um I say many years because I've been sober in AA. It'll be 35 years in July, which means I got sober when I was 4. But in other news, I um grew up in an alcoholic family. I had the opportunity to talk about this the other day with somebody. I don't know where I was, but my parents were both. My mother was sober in AA over 40 years when she passed away. We did a family intervention on my dad when I was 16 years old, and that was the fourth time they separated and got back together, from when I was sixth grade until I was 10th grade. And it was around alcoholism. It was around, his drinking and that stuff. And when I was a kid, I managed that with bags and boxes, right? And I remember, I tell the story a lot. I was in fourth grade when we moved from one house to the other, and I remember my Uncle Eddie and somebody else, I can't remember, I think it might have been my Uncle Bob, picking up my bed and finding the bags and boxes underneath, right? Like just the shame. And I was always chasing the food, or trying to sneak it, I guess. I I'm from Boston. I love when I say March because I say it just like that purposely. Um, there's a place in Boston called Sullivan's, and it's at South Boston, and it's attached. It's right next to like UMass Boston, and it's like the Irish Riviera, right? The Irish immigrant Riviera. And there's this loop. It's called the Sugar Bowl. I'm not saying that the wrong way. And it's this loop that you walk around, and it's water, and there's this place Sullivan's, and it's a staple. You go there and you get the fried and the frozen and the stuff in the little containers and whatnot. And I remember being there with my grandparents and my grandmother. My grandparents were both immigrants, and they worked their asses off. And my grandmother had, yeah, you could have come up with the cure for cancer, but if you didn't have a nice figure, wasn't it just awful? And I went from being somebody she would give money to go to these places to not, right? Once I stopped growing, or once I started getting heavier, there was a lot of shame and that type of thing. And I remember one day being at Sullivan's with her and my grandfather and probably my two brothers, and we had our bicycles and we were riding around and all that stuff. And I thought I got away from her, and I went into Sullivan's, and there she was around the corner. I swear she was waiting for me. It was like a trap. It was, and I can still feel that shame, right? 50 years later, it's got to be, if not 45. Um, and I went on my first diet in fifth grade. My mother had taken me to Mass General because I was very, very tall when I was younger. And I was like head and shoulders. I got to find my first grade picture because it's like everybody else and Tara in the middle, right? Like the class pictures. And they took me to Mass General, where they took X-rays of my hands, and they found that predicted I was going to be between 5'10" and 6'2". And my mother was horrified because she has a cousin who inherited the height. It runs on her side of the family. And cousin Nancy walked around like cousin it, like her head down, her hair down, like trying to make herself shorter and that sort of thing. And never mind the fact this woman was also probably an alcoholic, from what I understand. Um, and she didn't want that for me. And so they put me on a series of estrogen and progesterone starting in 5th grade, which brought my cycles early, because once a female starts her cycles, she stops growing taller, is was what I was told 50 something years ago. Um, and so I started, and at that point, everyone was talking to me about, you're not going to go tall anymore. You're going to go this way. And, there's so many stories I can tell about all of this stuff. But my first diet was in 5th grade. Women's Doctor's Diet for Women. I say it all the time. There's a protein on the gray sheet that's really big in like the protein social media phase and stuff like that. They use it for everything. I have to use it mixed with something. I will not eat it by itself unless it's the difference between me being abstinent not, because that has so many negative connotations for me from back then. Um, so, in 5th grade, you're 10, 11 years old. I hit great um, goal weight when I was 28, right? Never hit a goal weight. I was never someone who could diet and hit a goal weight and then eat again. I never, ever, like the most weight I ever lost at one time was like 11 pounds. And I had like 30 more to lose every time, it seemed. And I went off, I went to a really good high school in the city of Boston. And I came from a neighborhood where the kids played outside. There was kick the can or, street hockey or whatever. And there were girls and boys in all different ages. And one day a switch went off and I stopped going outside. I just stopped. And the girls came looking for me a couple of times, which was wonderful. I think about it now and it's like, God bless you. Thank you so much. But I couldn't do it. And I retreated to Harlequin teenage romances, ABC after school specials, and General Hospital. Right, that was where I went, and away went um, school, right, or like paying. I did not take 1/8 of the advantage of the opportunities that were right at my feet and that I had the brains to do, but I couldn't do it, and I just know that today, right? I know that today. My God, I look like my mother tonight. My hand gestures all day long. I've seen her all day long. Um, I got through that high school, but I remember just I was a square peg trying to fit in a round hole. I never fit in anywhere. And, I'm here today to say that I know my disease wants three things for me. It wants me fat, drunk, and alone. And I'm anything but those things today. Now, I'm 15 pounds heavier than I want to be. And my food has not changed, right? It's just I'm getting older. And no matter what I do, it just doesn't seem to change. Now, my clothes still fit. I don't like how they look, but they still fit. Um,
I'm thinking
my,
about DPI.
my sponsor has no problem with where I'm at, right? I kind of beg her and she's like, "Nope, you're fine." And it's just where I'm at today and that's just how it is. So, here's the thing. I am not fat, I am not drunk, I am not alone, I am loved, I am respected, and I have to say that stuff out loud because in between my two ears I do not think that, right? That is where my disease has me today. Um skip ahead a whole bunch of stuff. Like I could we don't have that kind of time. I got sober. I got a job teaching out in Hawaii. I moved out to Hawaii. Dumbasses gave me 17 sick days a year. I got the Waikiki flu more than I'd like to admit, but yes, I had a few beach days. And while I was out there, I got knee deep into service in the AA community, and I met a woman who was doing. She was a member of AA, Al-Anon, and OA. And I tell you, I write to her and I would talk to her all the time. And I was going to a counselor through my insurance
Five
and I was
minutes left.
oh dear Lord. Yeah, I'm going to skip way ahead. Um I was going to a counselor and all that stuff, and I was part of I was part of her master's thesis for changing behaviors, and they put me on a food plan, and they put me on a, a an exercise plan and all that stuff, and it all worked until the day it didn't. But I don't remember her bringing me to OA. I just want to say that part. Like, I got put in this program, but I never got brought to the program. Skip ahead. My husband and I are now living together. We were still dating, living together, and a girl in my AA. I moved back to Boston, and a girl in my AA community was going to 90-day OA, and she was talking about it. And I said, "Can you bring me?" And that was in August of 1997. And so I've been in some sort of food recovery almost entirely since 1997. And I got abstinent. I lost the weight like nothing. The weight stayed off. But if you know anything about that community, it's weighing and measuring with exception, and grains get added in after you hit goal weight. And and that worked until it didn't. That's all I can say. It worked for a while and then it didn't. And once I started that program, Joey introduced me to a woman named Susie H. She was from the Cambridge community. She is no longer a GreySheeter. She's able to keep her weight off. God bless her. It's not what I want to say, but God bless her. I don't think I could do it. I know I couldn't, actually, because I know that um, I am one bite away from 200-pound weight gain tomorrow, right? I just know that. She introduced me to Gray Sheet. I wasn't ready yet until I was, and I got ready. Our daughter turned 2, and no, she turned 1, and I was on a binge, and I had been binging off and on here and there, having these. I would get 6 months, not 6 months. I don't know, like up and down, up and down, up and down. And I felt like I needed to go to that last house on the left, which is what I thought this was. And I got abstinent in the Cambridge community, trained for the Disney Marathon with Susie. She and I ran it together. It was Marathon. Mary was there. Care was there. There was all these people there. And I did not pray, plan, prepare, and protect enough. Like, those 3 things were not ingrained in me the way they are today. And I picked up, and it started a series of stuff that was 2002. Yep. 2004, 2003. I don't know. Yeah, let's go with 2003. That was 2003. I got back to Gray Sheet in May of 2008. My back-to-back date is different, but I have not eaten anything not on the Gray Sheet since then. And I will tell you, nothing else on this planet works for me but this. I was telling some people this story last week. I've been with my dad a lot. He says to me, "Don't you get sick of eating the same things over and over again?" And I can't believe this came to me like this, but it came to me like nothing. I said, "Dad, Steve Jobs, he wore the same thing every day, so he didn't use that brain space. Dad, I couldn't figure out my weight all those years. And now I know how to stay this size. So it works. So I don't want to think about it anymore." And a stubborn drunk Irishman had no problem with that idea. Like, and that was amazing to me that he bought that. Um, I we have a beautiful life, Joe and I. I am so grateful that in 2019 he joined us on this journey, because I thought I was going to bury him. And so I want to thank everyone on these, that I still have a partner, because I can't do this.
1 minute.
Thank you. I know God will put the things in place for me if I had to, but I'm really glad I don't have to today. Um, and I have a higher power. I have a faith that I don't believe in it all. I'm a cafeteria Catholic. I take what I like and I leave the rest. And I have a really dear friend in Gray Sheet one day. I was talking to her about this. I'm like, "How do you wrap your head around this?" And she says, "Oh, you're talking about man. I'm not worried about man. I'm worried about God." And that took it all away from me. And then she said, "And if I change churches, I got to learn new prayers and new songs, and I'm too old for that shit." And that just took care of that for me too. So that's what I do, right? I go there with my God, and I weigh and measure without exception. And one last story, and then I'll stop because I know my time is up. But We traveled down to Georgia last weekend, and the ride down was great. We had 3 meals packed on the ride down. The ride back, we did not, and we almost got stuck. And I remember saying to him, "All right, what do we have? What do we need? What can we get?" That kind of thing, and trying to figure out what we had in between our two stuff before we got home. Thank you, Rachel, and higher power. He was saying the Serenity Prayer, and I was saying rosaries, and at 10 minutes, we had a 4:20 flight, and we didn't get through TSA till 4:03, and we made that flight, and we were in the international terminal. Like that's how much I believe in God. But I believe in God and I pray, plan, and I pack. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, I can't just say you do this without me doing my 10%, right? And that's what I'm trying to do today. So, thank you, Elle, for getting me back in. I've had to reschedule because of Dad, and it's wonderful to see you all tonight. So, thanks for letting me share.